Welcome to the first in our 2023 series of An Audience With. This one has got a particular focus on operating as a teacher and the ways that you can work with RSL to develop your portfolio as a teacher, develop your practice as a teacher. So in this first session, I'm delighted to be joined by Alex Forryan, who will introduce himself in a manner of speaking. We've got various questions that I want to ask you. It should be about half an hour, Alex. So welcome, hello. Just
Hello.
tell us a little bit about yourself as a musician and kind of how you got yourself to this point here.
I've been a musician pretty much all my life. My dad was a drummer, so I started playing very young. I started playing when I was 5. Have played drums ever since. Left school to play drums, pretty unqualified in terms of academic qualifications, but could play pretty well. Went into a professional kind of working environment, doing lots of different things. Went through the kind of playing in pit bands, working in the West End, doing session work, doing recording work, then moved it into some more live work. That kind of migrated into doing more sort of function band work and kind of show band work. That in itself then moved into being a kind of musical director and doing sort of music for shows and award ceremonies and things like that. Ended up working abroad quite a lot across sort of Middle East and Europe. And it was going really, really well. Very busy as a musician, as a band leader, but obviously social life takes a hammering, and as your life goes on, you sort of think, do I want to be doing this forever? Do I want to be carrying a drum kit, up and downstairs forever? So thought that I would look into teaching as a possible option to fill in some of the gaps and maybe take some teaching work, so I didn't have to take some of those gigs that I wished when I got there that I hadn't taken. So started doing a little bit of teaching, found pretty much from the get-go that I got more out of teaching than I did out of playing. That sort of in part of knowledge, that watching people develop, being able to sort of tap into a lot of the sort of skills that you've developed over that period of time, I found really, really rewarding, to the point where I took on more teaching, looked at different avenues of teaching. Obviously teaching fitted into a social life more so than playing live. There was midweek work, there was daytime work, working as a peripatetic teacher in schools. So my teaching practice per se grew. Started working with some music education providers, which then led on to doing getting some formal training as a teacher, because up until that point I hadn't got any formal training as a teacher. I'd done some training by this point, didn't have any formal training. Back in the day, before there was the RSL professional diplomas, I went and did a Petals and a Detals course at level 4 and level 6 to learn how to teach, basically. And that then developed into one of the providers that I was working for was providing diploma education for local colleges. And we were delivering the RSL VQs, the vocational qualifications, at level 2, level 3, and ultimately level 4 at the time. Found that very rewarding, very challenging, but it was a very rewarding experience. Got to teach in lots of different scenarios, lots of different colleges. The VQ structure enabled me to really kind of stretch out and show some of the skills that I developed over a period of time. So there's a performance element, but there was also other pathways. So there was a music technology pathway that enabled me to kind of get my logic chops up and up to a sort of teaching standard. There was a business pathway as well, so it was enabled me to sort of use some of the knowledge that I'd gained over time. So I did that for a good few years. Stopped doing that again as family grew up and family developed. Now I work as an education consultant, so I work with different centres. Do a lot of teacher training, so a lot of young teachers that are coming into the profession, either deliberately wanting to become teachers or finding that post-COVID there maybe isn't the same kind of live working environment that they thought there was going to be. So I'm involved now in teaching and training a lot of young new teachers coming on board, consequently, I have quite a varied week. So I still teach drums, which again I'm enjoying. it's good to keep your hand in. As anyone that has taught will tell you, when you're teaching, you need to keep your standard up, because as you teach, you get better. It's one of those kind of weird transferable things. So that's pretty much where I am now. It's a fairly full week, utilizing all the skills that I've developed over that time: teaching, playing, advising, coaching, mentoring. So that's kind of where I am now. All of that really has come from the decision when I decided to stop playing and investigate teaching as a potential asymmetric career that could run alongside my playing career.
That's quite interesting, talking about being able to use teaching in place of some of those gigs that you had to do but didn't really want to do, but also the fact that you continue to get better because you're teaching.
I definitely found that, Dan. I definitely found that from a playing point of view, I could read pretty well, to be honest with you. I used to lean into my teaching and my reading as a player. But even then, I found that as I started teaching and having to sort of really analyze and overanalyze and really take a kind of analytical approach to reading and playing and reading and sight reading and development, it got better and better, and it's something that I wish I'd started a lot earlier in my career, to be honest with you, because I think it would have accelerated my own learning through teaching.
And how do you deal with it? Someone sitting there thinking, I could do teaching, but a whole day of teaching absolute beginner drums will just be, I can't think of anything worse. What advice would you give to somebody who's sort of sitting there thinking that?
I think one of the things that I'm always mindful of is that even though I'm a second generation musician, my dad was a drummer, I'm a drummer, I don't particularly feel that I'm a natural drummer. I don't feel that I popped out as a drummer. Everything that I can do, I've learnt. So that enables me to think, well, everybody that I'm teaching is going to go through exactly the same pathway that I went through. We're going to tread the same path. So all of the mistakes and challenges and sticking points that any learner is going to have, whether it be a sort of primary age school child learning the drums, teenagers learning the drums, adults, older mature students, we're all treading the same pathway. So it's always interesting, because whatever challenges you're faced with as a teacher, chances are that they're things that I've overcome, and therefore I've probably got a few moves to kind of steer them around some of those challenges. So and that's always new. Every time I teach, it's something new. You're learning something from it. You evaluate how you've done, you reflect on what you've done, and you're going to be better next time. So it's always fresh. It's always new. It's never, yes, 8 o'clock on a Monday morning in a secondary school teaching drums to someone who doesn't particularly want to learn the drums is challenging. But if you can impart some of your love and passion about the music and what you do to that learner, and as they go out the door, you're seeing that little glint, or maybe that little kind of like just chink in their arm, and think, well, maybe I could do this. It's invaluable, and I'm going to get something out of that. So it's a continual process, I think.
And I guess when you're doing a gig and you're thinking the audience isn't really responding, you'll look at a different way of presenting that particular thing, or a different way. And when you're teaching, just because you're teaching the same piece to a child doesn't mean you can take exactly the same approach kind of next time with a different child or whatever. No, because obviously you're dealing with personalities, right? Exactly.
I mean, from my point of view, on two aspects. One, when I first started playing professionally, a very old musician told me a really piece of wisdom that I always carry with me, is that he just said, son, remember that not every gig can be the best gig you ever do. And I've carried that through into my teaching. So, like, yes, some days, some lessons aren't the best lesson I've ever done, and some lessons then, some fell on stony ground. But overall, it's been a positive experience. And when I was doing lots of functions, come December time, I was playing the same tunes, for 3 hours a night, 30 times, a month. Mm-hmm. So, although I was playing live and I was being a musician, it was all fantastic. I got to be honest, there was times when I was thinking, I wish I was just at home. So, it's horses for courses, but it's always a challenge. But I think overall, as on a reflective, look back on it, whole thing, it's been a very, very positive experience for me teaching. And it continues to be, you know, and when it's not, I'll stop. But I'm still doing it, and I'm still enjoying it. So it's continuing.
And I suppose that's the thing, if you're a portfolio professional, you've got a bit of teaching, you've got a bit of performing, you've got a bit of this, that, and the other, so you can keep it interesting. But I mean, you talked as well about the fact you can do teaching instead of doing a gig. So you find that teaching from a financial perspective is quite useful.
Yeah, I mean, teaching is a numbers game. So, the more if you want to earn more money, you're going to have to do more teaching. There's no two ways about it. You'll always find that teacher that's going to come at you and say, well, I can earn £50 an hour. And like, yes, you can, probably once or twice, but can you do that over, 2 or 3 days a week over a 10-week term? So if you look at it, if you take a step back and think, well, I'm teaching over a longer period of time, and those increments of income are coming at me on a weekly basis, then it's a much more solid way of earning money rather than dealing with the gigantic dynamic fluctuations of being a freelance session musician where January you've got nothing, February you might get some stuff, March gigs start coming in, May through September, sure, you're going to have weddings and functions and things, and then you're going to get into the dark months again, and you're constantly navigating that dynamic income range. Whereas teaching is going to level that out. It's going to give you that consistent. There's nothing to stop anybody, teaching in the midweeks and gigging at weekends. And again, that gives you relevance because you're doing what you're teaching what you're doing. So you can do both, and that's the beautiful part of adopting an approach where, if you become an educator as well as a performer, you've got that asymmetric career, and they can run side by side and be complementary to each other.
And obviously that you've looked at that very much from an individual basis. But you mentioned earlier about liaising with private, with other organisations. I mean, what are the benefits of working as a teacher for a wider organisation like a music hub or a school or something like that?
Predominantly, it's the first port of call is that your chances are that if you're working for a teaching facility, whether it be a school, a college, university, a music centre, a music school, the equipment's going to be there for a start. As a drummer, that's a bonus because I just have to walk in. I don't have to carry anything. I'm not carrying drum kits up flights of stairs anymore. So I'm walking in, and I'm the facility is there for me. Chances are that administration will be low, or it should be low. So your timetabling and payments and everything else should be taken by somebody else, so that you've got more time to concentrate on what you're good at, rather than having to worry about keeping a timetable, keeping a diary, dealing with cancellations. Often, if you're teaching for a facility or for a school, people are paying termly. So, monies are being taken for a term of teaching, and you're getting paid because they've engaged you for, say, 10 sessions over that period of time. So again, you've leveled out that income dynamic, and it's a slightly easier way to manage your diary, manage your time, and focus your time on what you're good at. I've always telling when I'm training younger teachers and they're going into work, certainly for working for organisations, I say to them that the most important thing is to think of yourself as an intrapreneur rather than entrepreneur. You are creating your own little micro business in somebody else's macro business. So even though you might be working with somebody else, I would always argue that you're necessarily not working for them. You're working for yourself, because we're all probably freelance. But you're working within an organization, but it's your responsibility to grow your business within that macro business. So ultimately, you're going to be the person that's client facing. You're going to be the person that's dealing with either your students or more probably your students' parents. They're probably going to be your end client, because they're the people that will actually be funding these lessons. So, again, you've got a lot of control within that. You're not just, turning up and just, churning through the kind of cogs. You are, you're dealing with clients, you're managing expectations. So it is going to be your little micro business within somebody else's business. And then you can really grow it as you wish. It's you've got the opportunity to do as much or as little as you want, probably when you want, whether it be daytime or evening. So for me, that's an advantage of not being a kind of lone gun going out and teaching, in other people's houses. Which again, there's often, a lot of pitfalls around that. There's safeguarding issues, there's cancellation issues. It's not probably the best way of doing it. From my experience, it's been more lucrative and easier to work within facilities where the equipment's there, the timetabling is dealt with, and I can concentrate on my learners and my end clients. So that would be my my take on that.
And taking that a step further, then, if you're an individual teacher, entrepreneurially developing your own business, what are the risks or the benefits really of going off and setting up a business where you are running a teaching business, you're sort of employing other people to work with you?
I think there's always going to be I think all of us that have chosen a path of freelance musicianship, and we've decided to work for ourselves within the field of music, or within that creative arts sector. There's going to be some of us that will work entrepreneurially. There will some of us that will look at an opportunity and think, well, I can monetize this and I can grow this business. Some of us won't want to, some of us will want to. And I think that the nice part about it is that those that want to create their own businesses will still need those people that need to work within that business. And then you've got that team working environment, which is what we all bought into when we became musicians. Very few of us decided to be solo musicians. A lot of us, certainly drummers, bass, rhythm section players, we wanted to work with other people. So, it's often that piece where it's nice to be able, if you're teaching drums, you're probably going to know bass players, guitarists, keyboard players that, if you're having a good time teaching, you're going to be talking to them and saying, well, actually, this is a really good income stream for me. Do you fancy doing a day? A 2 hours will turn into 3, will turn into 4, will turn into 5. One day will turn into 2. And all of a sudden you'll find yourself, that business is growing and expanding. Also, it gets to a point where you will, a successful teacher that does it well, gets results, understands the client relationship, will constantly be busy, because obviously, if you think about it in terms of year on year, you've got a new batch of potential clients coming online every year as people are born, grow up, get to a point where they want to learn musical instruments. So if it's successful and it's working and it's growing, you will need to expand, and then that expansion is either within somebody else's business or within your own business, and you'll take on other people to. But if you've got a successful formula that works, then there's nothing stopping anybody starting their own school, as long as they keep the quality high and they use a good syllabus and they got a good exam structure in place. Then I've seen it time and time again. Music schools will grow and grow again and grow again and grow again. So I think if you're doing things right, if you're doing the basics right and offering a good service and getting good customer, client feedback, your business will grow. And then it can be within somebody else's business, or it can be your own business that will then grow exponentially, probably.
And you might have touched on this a little bit, but if putting yourself in the position of someone who's just graduated, say, with a degree, they're thinking, I'm going to do a bit of teaching because I can see that there's a good option. 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning is a pretty dead time for me, but they're not necessarily getting the inquiries or anything. What are the steps you can take there? What are the tips you could provide?
In any area, and I've worked, I've worked within London, I've worked outside in the kind of home counties areas. I've also worked, across Europe. There will be a local music school. There will be a certain sort of fraternity of younger people that want to learn musical instruments. So it's often, look for those opportunities and look for those situations. Chances are there will be, if there isn't a music service in your area, then that will necessitate there being other schools that have grown out of that. If there is a successful music service, contact that music service and say you would like to teach for them. You'd like to maybe, or even just ask. I've found that one of the best ways I've found about getting information is to, find a situation that is working and ask your way to success. Go and say, can I sit in with some of your teachers? Can I, do you have a slightly more senior teacher that is prepared to mentor me in this process? And then within a short period of time, there will, again, as new clients come online, they'll say, well, look, do you want to try this? Do you want to see how you get on? And then before you know it, if you're doing the right things right, and you're developing your technique, you're developing your teaching, you'll get better, you'll get more clients, and then your process will grow. One of the key points that I tell a lot of younger musicians that, like you said, have come out of college and they're thinking, I want to get into teaching, and they don't really know how, is that as younger musicians, we decided to get very good at something. And the way we got very good at something was probably copying other people. As a playing musician, I don't think I've ever come up with my own idea ever. I've stolen all my best ideas from other drummers. And I've hand on heart, I can say that I've done that from teaching as well. I've looked at other teachers and I've stolen all the best ideas from other good teachers. So for younger teachers coming online, try and get somebody to mentor you. Try and get into a situation where there's some more experienced teachers that you can follow, you can copy, you can get some ideas from. And if you're not qualified, get qualified. As I said, when I started teaching and wanted to learn how to teach, there weren't the qualifications specifically governed or geared towards music. Now we're lucky. There is a framework where there's RSL have professional diplomas that teachers can take. We've got career qualifications that teachers can buy into and think, right, well, I want to put myself on that learning process. In the same way that I've learned to be brilliant at the bass, I want to learn to be brilliant at teaching. And there's a set, there's a structure in place now that we can benchmark our progression up to kind of mastery level, at which point, you'll be a successful teacher. And then, your asymmetric career might go one way. You might just be like me. You might just go, actually, do you know what? I'm going to stay as an educator and move away from the live scene. So I think for younger teachers, there is a fraternity of successful, more senior teachers out there. And very rarely will they say no. If you say, can I come and watch you teach? My door is always, for the younger teachers that I'm mentoring and coaching, I'm always saying, come in and see some ideas. You might not like my ideas. You might disagree with the way I teach. You might even hate my ideas, but then that's going to inform your decisions. You won't use those things. But if I've gamified some little element of my class and you think, actually, that would work in one of my lessons, steal it. You're welcome to it. Have fun with it. So I think there's we as musicians are used to working together and to learning from each other and riffing off each other. And I think the teaching fraternity, music education fraternities is exactly the same.
Mm. That's quite interesting. I'm actually, as you're talking, drawing quite a lot of parallels with preparing a lesson, delivering a lesson, and actually evaluating a lesson. There are links to the same thing when you're preparing a performance, right? You're looking at the gig, who's going to be the audience, how you're going to present it. When you're there, turning it so that it turns, from what could be a relatively, bog standard, not massively engaging performance into something that's much more engaging. And then, of course, the reflection afterwards as to what we're going to do differently, and the creative ideas, knowing what to repeat, knowing what to chuck out. So it's interesting. You can see the parallels. Yeah.
And I've always said, certainly as your teaching career develops and you start to maybe investigate teaching in slightly bigger groups, or you start taking band classes where you're using your performance skills in a multi-musical discipline class, of which now there's qualifications that are associated with that as well. So again, as a drummer, I could take a band class of guitarists, bass players, drummers, singers, keyboard players, and we could all do grades together. So that structure's there. But certainly, when I'm teaching in a group, it's a performance. It has to be a performance. It has to be engaging. There has to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to end well. I want people to go out of that class thinking it was fun. I can't wait to come back. I've got some ideas. I'm going to go away and practice. I can't wait to come back next week. Like any performance, it should leave your audience wanting more. And I think, a good lesson is a good performance. You want people to, you want people not to be applauding, but you want people to think, that was really cool, thank you, and then want to come back. So you're exactly right. We've got that skill base. We're experienced delivering that kind of performance, and it is just kind of making a slight change, pivoting, and then adopting that mentality for our teaching. And there'll be the successful teachers that, it's a fun class and everybody likes it.
Mm. And I suppose what I'm also hearing actually is this idea that as you're continuing to do some performing, that helps improve your teaching, and actually vice versa. So it's quite good to have those things sort of working in parallel, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I still get, as you've got, learners at all different ages going through. I mean, I personally use the RSL syllabus structure, always have done, and it works great for me. The charts are good. The back end is good. The backing tracks are good. The learning platform's indispensable. It's all of those kind of lovely, kind of integrated things. Mm. And as it's gone on, it enables you to sort of develop your lessons and have fun with those lessons. But you're still going to have people coming into you saying, as they developed, they're going to be coming saying, look, can you show me how to do this? And there's been often times where I go, this is new to me. I don't know. Give me a week. Let me do some research. I'll come back and then but I would say that if you're getting to that point, certainly with teaching and educating, if you're getting to the point where your learners are coming to you and saying, could you teach me this? It's a win. Because then everybody wins out of that scenario. If it's not something that you can do, then it's something that you're going to have to go and work on, which again develops your own technique. Stylistically, I'd come from a jazz background, but then had to teach myself how to play rock and how to play double bass drums and how to play blast beats, and had to play in that style. Not my natural environment, but as learners came on, or I was teaching in a specific college that had a kind of sort of sub branch of learner that was really into kind of metal and sort of thrash, then I had to be able to teach those students. It's no good me going, well, let's all learn jazz, guys, because I'm going to lose that class. That performance is going to die. So I need to be responding to my audience and teaching them the things they want to teach. So yes, and I've developed as my students are coming to me saying, can you do this and can you do that? Which is really exciting. It never stops being exciting. It never stops being, something that is going to develop your own ability for the next time somebody walks in and says, can you show me some drum and bass? And you're like, yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah. I see that. So the constant evolution of your own practice, I suppose. Okay, so Alex, we've got about 90 seconds left. In those 90 seconds, do you think you could come up with, say, 3 top tips for a teacher sitting there now going, I want to expand my portfolio? What would those tips be?
If you're a young teacher coming out of college or coming out of university and you want to get into teaching, go and find a mentor, go and find a coach or somebody that you can go and steal all their good ideas from, and then develop your own teaching career in that situation. Point 2, I'd say, if you're teaching in an area, go and look at other teachers in your area and see what they're doing. They might be doing something wrong, but they might be doing something right. If they've adopted technology and you haven't adopted technology, then maybe you need to adopt technology. If you go and see a teacher and they're using the learning platform, if anybody was looking through my windows when I'm teaching, they would see me with the learning platform on a big screen with group of learners really enjoying themselves. If they were then looking at their own practice thinking, that doesn't look like one of my lessons, maybe that's something that they want to look into. Maybe that's something that they want to expand upon and investigate. And thirdly, I would say, think of yourself now as an educator. Don't necessarily think of yourself as a one discipline instrumentalist teacher, because once you've learned the skills as a teacher, those are transferable skills. You can do band coaching. You can do instrumental coaching. I work in lots of different situations now, some of which are music-based and some of which aren't necessarily music-based. But all of that comes from teaching and being an educator. And the minute we get onto that education piece, then we've got lots of different options to be able to turn our hands to different things. So when lockdown happened, for me to go straight onto Zoom and start using technology in that way, I had all the teaching skills to be able to completely pivot and go, okay, my lessons as per used to be may not be the same, but I've still got the teaching skill to be able to deliver really, really good, engaging lessons. Kept all my students throughout lockdown. In fact, got more. So teaching has saved a lot of musicians through that period. So again, it's by adopting the idea that you're an educator, not necessarily a single one discipline instrumental teacher.
Alex, thank you very, very much for today. Obviously, we will be talking again very soon. There will be information in the comments and at the end of this, but it's for how you can find out more information about what Rock School do and the qualifications. And we hope this has been useful for everybody. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
You're very welcome. See you soon. Bye.